Tottenham target, Mathys Tel. It's virtually impossible to say where he'll end up.
Tottenham are willing to put £50 million on the table. United are one of those number of Premier League clubs, top Premier League clubs, who've spoken to Tel's advisors, and Arsenal are at the table as well. So are Chelsea. So is there a risk here that Tottenham, for the second time in this window, could find themselves snubbed by one of their top targets?
The boy undoubtedly will move before 10 o'clock Monday night.
But the decision will be his. I think he's got his pick of these top Premier League clubs.
Hi everybody, my name is Jim White. You know by now what this is, of course you do. We're almost at transfer deadline day, and this is our final one, our final talkSPORT transfer notebook with myself and my great friend and colleague, the chief football correspondent, the workaholic who is Alex Crook. This is our last one before the day itself, coming your way on the 3rd, which is Monday. And we've had some great guests. We've had Sky Sports' Melissa Reddy. The other day we had transfer guru David Ornstein. But I have to inform you, the star of the show has been the man sitting to my left. Mr. Crook has been working non-stop. And it seems, Alex, now we're into the business end.
Yep.
How do you reflect on the window so far?
I think it's been manic, Jim, to be honest. Maybe not in terms of deals that have been completed, but in terms of the names we've been talking about, the calibre of name that we've been talking about, the likes of Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho. John Duran obviously looks like he's on his way to Saudi Arabia. Arsenal's bid for Ollie Watkins this week that came completely out of the blue. So you're talking about big clubs trying to do big business between now and Monday, and I think that's going to continue.
Just in the passing, Simon Jordan, you know Simon Jordan, of course you do. He had his say on John Duran going to Saudi Arabia. Yeah. I had mine. To me, Alex, the boy is still young. He can come back and in his mid-20s, maybe earlier, go back to a Premier League club, having made a huge amount of money, and carry on with his career and still show us what he can do in the Premier League, should he wish to.
Yeah, and I think actually there is a break clause in the contract that we believe kicks in after 2 years that would enable him to do just that and come back to the Premier League or another top European club. As you say, he'll only be 23, 24 by then. The money he's being paid is life-changing, $500,000 a week. Not too many of us would turn our nose up at that.
Decision to be made?
But what's really interesting about this transfer, as I understand it, Al Nassr, who are the club who are buying him, Cristiano Ronaldo's club, of course, they were preferring to sign Boniface from Bayer Leverkusen. It was the Saudi Pro League themselves who wanted to get this deal for John Duran over the line because it's a statement signing. A 21-year-old, an exciting young striker, playing in the best and most watched league in the world, saying, no, do you know what? My Premier League career is over for now. I'm going to join the Saudi Pro League. That's why they were so determined to get it done.
One thing, just in the passing, I don't want to forget this. Harry, a taxi driver in London, these guys are just the salt of the earth. Says to me the other night, transfer deadline day fast approaching, your mate at talkSPORT, Alex Crook, how does he remember all the names? It is something when you consider the number of names in the mix building up to the day itself. You've got to stay focused, you've got to stay on it, haven't you?
Absolutely. And, you know, 20 clubs to keep an eye on, plus those in the EFL. We shouldn't forget those.
Sure.
There was a big story coming out of Wrexham this week, a record signing for them, £2 million, Sam Smith, striker coming from Reading, and I'm sure that's going to get headlines, particularly in America. So much going on, but it's great, isn't it? I mean, this month has been terrific in terms of content. It's been knackering, and I'm looking forward to lying down in the dark room next week. But as I say, Monday, 10 till 1 a.m. we'll be on air, both on talkSPORT and on the YouTube channel, and I think it's going to be big. I think it's going to go off.
I agree with you, Alex. I mean, we always say it, but I think when Alex and I take to the air 10 p.m., as he rightly says, on Monday night, here in talkSPORT, we're not in the 17th floor at the moment, but we will be in the 17th floor in that studio for that occasion. Expect the unexpected. I honestly mean it. I think this one will be special, and you do not want to miss a thing. Peterborough owner Darragh McAntony, who's not backward and coming forward, is going to be joining Alex and myself. Let's start with Arsenal. All sorts of talk. Arsenal, what are they up to this week? Coming in when they did for Ollie Watkins and not getting him. What's your take on that? And what's your take on what might happen from a Gunners' viewpoint from now until the deadline?
Well, there were two schools of thought about this deal, and actually a third one has been offered to me this morning. So one school of thought is that Arsenal were almost trying to appease their fans by going for a player they knew they didn't have a great chance of getting, but it showed they were active in the market. I'm not convinced by that. The second school of thought because they had to make their approach for Ollie Watkins when they did, because they knew this interest from Saudi and John Duran was still bubbling under. The Saudi transfer deadline is today, so 3 days before the Premier League window closes.
Yeah.
I think Arsenal just wanted to give Aston Villa a decision to make. Look, you don't have to sell Duran. You can sell Watkins to us instead. I think that's the most likely scenario, and we know that Watkins is a boyhood Arsenal fan, so there would have been a bit of encouragement there. The third one, which was offered to me as a conspiracy theory this morning, is that Aston Villa, despite the fact they were telling us they were agitated by the timing of Arsenal's interest on the day they were playing Celtic in a massive Champions League game to determine if they went through to the round of 16 or not. But actually, it was Aston Villa who were quite happy for that to be out there, because it meant the Saudis then stepped up their interest in John Duran. So I'm sure the truth is somewhere in between.
Okay, but John Duran, just to reaffirm, on his way, deal done, and he heads out to the Saudi Pro League and never will have a money worry for the rest of his life. Well done you, John. On Ollie Watkins, are we pretty much resigned to the fact that he'll stay put, or are you hearing anything coming out of Arsenal that they might revisit?
Well, obviously, when the bid was rejected, and I think it was less than the £60 million that was originally quoted, the information we were getting is they could well try again. I think now Duran has gone. Arsenal know that Villa won't sell both their top strikers this window. That was very much laid on the line to me by sources at Villa when the Watkins interest first came to light. So I think Ollie Watkins will stay. Then you asked the question, do they go back in the summer? He's 29 years old. It's going to take a bid in excess, I think, of £60 million to sign him. And there'll be other options at the table, won't there, in the summer? Benjamin Šeško, who we know Mikel Arteta is a huge fan of, might well be open to the move from RB Leipzig. And I think come the summer, if they can get somebody a little bit younger than Watkins, I think that's the route Arsenal will go down.
It wouldn't be a transfer notebook show without talking about Manchester United. Alex, I've heard you so often talking about Marcus Rashford. And of late, can I say it? You've been quite scathing about him.
Yeah.
Not so much him, but the people around him.
Yeah, I think he's been badly advised. I think actually it was a really poor career decision to do that interview that he did with Henry Winter. Nothing against Henry, obviously, he's a brilliant journalist. But to come out and effectively say he wants to leave without saying he wanted to leave, he said he was ready for a new challenge. I think that just emboldened Ruben Amorim, it emboldened Manchester United, because they've said to Marcus Rashford, as I understand it, why should we contribute a massive percentage to your wages for you to go and play for someone else on loan when you've openly said you're looking to leave the football club? So I think he's backed himself into a corner. His advisors are saying he won't take a pay cut in order to get away. So I think he's at a standstill. And some of the clubs that have been mentioned in terms of those European heavyweights that his advisors have gone and met, I think it's fanciful to suggest that he's going to end up there between now and Monday. I might be wrong, but as we sit here now, I think Marcus Rashford stays. And then he's got to knuckle down. He's got to prove to Ruben Amorim that he's going to put a shift in training. He's going to conduct himself in the right manner off the pitch. Otherwise, he's going to sit in the stands for the rest of the season. That's not a brilliant situation for anybody. But Ruben Amorim is not going to back down here, I'll tell you that.
Wow. And does that impress you?
Yeah.
Just what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Amorim, is this a time, is this a moment that we look back in and think, remember Amorim flexing his muscle about Marcus Rashford?
I think it's long overdue, Jim, to be honest. I think another issue with Rashford is that too many people at Manchester United have protected him for too long. And Ruben Amorim now is calling out the situation as he sees it. He dropped Alejandro Garnacho for that Manchester derby as well. That was when the issues with Rashford really first came to light. You look at Garnacho's reaction, even though there's still a possibility he could go between now and Monday. He's got his head down, he's trained well, there's no issue between player and manager, and he comes on in a big Europa League game, one that United needed to get a result in Romania on Thursday night, and he helped change the course of the game in the second half.
Alex, this name, Patrick Dorgu, has been a name in the frame throughout the window. The Lecce left back, young Danish player. Do you reckon this one will be formally announced deadline day?
Maybe before. We're recording this on Friday lunchtime. I think he's due to play for Lecce this weekend. That's part of the deal with Manchester United because they've got a big game that they need to win. So he will stay, say his farewells, and then fly to Manchester to complete the formalities. But I think this deal will happen. It's been delayed, but there's nothing to suggest at the moment that it won't go ahead.
Is there anything to suggest that Tottenham target Mathys Tel is going to end up at Old Trafford?
Potentially. I wonder if this could depend on whether Rashford or Garnacho go between now and 11 o'clock on Monday, but certainly United are one of those number of Premier League clubs, top Premier League clubs, who've spoken to Tel's advisors and suggested there's an interest there on loan, I think, whereas Tottenham are willing to put £50 million on the table. But it's a tough situation for Spurs because they went all in on Kula Moani when I think we all knew he'd end up at Juventus. Now they're going all in on Mathys Tel, a very talented teenager, albeit one who's not being picked by Vincent Kompany. That's why he wants out of Bayern. Arsenal are at the table as well. So are Chelsea. So is there a risk here that Tottenham, for the second time in this window, could find themselves snubbed by one of their top targets?
This is what happens in the build-up to deadline day. So many times at Sky Sports, I remember, and you'll have experienced the same, Alex. We talk about one player and we talk about a cluster of clubs. And to be quite honest, at this precise time, when there is a bit of an auction ongoing, it's virtually impossible to say where he'll end up. But what we do know is the boy undoubtedly will move before 10 o'clock Monday night.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that doesn't happen. Time will tell in this case. There you go, see what I did with the headline. But the decision will be his. I think he's got his pick of these top Premier League clubs, and Bayern aren't necessarily forcing him out the door. I think there's actually some people in the hierarchy there that are thinking, well, why are all these big Premier League clubs coming in for him and our manager won't pick him? So yeah, I think probably they would prefer a loan at this moment in time, and I think he would as well, which is why I think Tottenham may be up against it. But Ange Postecoglou needs reinforcements. I know the Tottenham sporting director is working really hard to try and get this done, and they need some positive news, don't they, Spurs, between now and the end of the window?
Alex, a friend of mine, I do have friends, a Manchester United fan, you'll be pleased to hear, has been in touch on the podcast that you do before deadline day itself, which is this one. Puts it to Alex, anybody apart from Rashford and Garnacho moving out of Old Trafford?
They'd love to get Casemiro off the payroll. I think he played his first minutes in 2025 last night when he came on as substitute.
It was stuck at Roma, wasn't it?
FCSB, yeah, but again, he's on well in excess of 300 grand a week. Italian clubs just can't pay that, so there's going to need to be a bit of negotiating to be done with Manchester United. Obviously, the Saudi window, as we mentioned, closes today. No sign that that door is open at the moment for Casemiro. Maybe in the summer. Tyrone Malacia has been told he can go out on loan. There's some interest from both Real Betis and Benfica in him. I think Benfica potentially more advanced at this moment in time because, of course, Dorgu's coming in. Luke Shaw is back training as well. So hard to see where Malacia fits in. I think they'd probably let Victor Lindelof go if someone came in between now and 11 o'clock on Monday because he's out of contract at the end of the season. I know Ruud van Nistelrooy has looked at him, Everton as well. So we'll keep an eye on Lindelof. So, yeah, there could be one or two departures, but I'm not sure it's going to be the sort of superstar departure. But I wouldn't totally close the door on Garnacho because there is interest from Chelsea. And Napoli still lurking as well.
And talking about Chelsea, I think we've explained on the podcast before, Alex and I were together on the night that Enzo Fernandez would he be moving from Benfica to Chelsea. We couldn't get word. I had a glance at my phone, as Alex does on a regular basis, looking for just a line or two to give us some information on it. And someone extremely senior, and I mean, well, like one of the top men at Chelsea, got in touch to say, this will happen. Enzo Fernandez will be a Chelsea player. We've got special dispensation to go into an extra hour that night. Do you think Chelsea will do any late business?
I'm almost certain of it, Jim.
Yeah.
Because that's just what Chelsea do.
Exactly.
On deadline day.
Yeah.
They will try and spot an opportunity in the market. Their form has tailed off a bit as well. You know, they are in danger of maybe dropping out of the top 4, top 5 in the Premier League, which will be a disaster as far as Enzo Maresca is concerned. They need to be back in the Champions League next season. They're in the Conference League this year, which is no good to anybody, in all honesty. Evan Ferguson. Now, I wrote about Evan Ferguson and Chelsea's interest in my notebook on the talkSPORT website probably 3 or 4 months ago now, and it's just starting to bubble under again. We know that Brighton are open to offers, maybe even open to the sale of Evan Ferguson, although I think that's going to be difficult to do in the short time we've got left. More likely, he goes out on loan, and certainly people on the board at Chelsea, the likes of Paul Winstanley, one of the co-sporting directors, he knows all about Ferguson's talents from his time at Brighton. So that is certainly one that we're going to be keeping a very close eye on.
And you have been, because I noticed it was confirmed another Premier League club bid, 60, 70 for Evan Ferguson? Am I right about I know it was a Premier League club, I'm not sure which one. You will.
Yeah, well, I've been sworn to secrecy on that because the Premier League club, during the negotiations with Brighton, wanted anonymity. They wanted to do it in a respectful manner.
Sure.
So I can't reveal the identity of the club or the figure because Brighton don't really make public their asking price.
Right.
But there will be an asking price for Evan Ferguson.
Yeah.
If a club hits that between now and Monday, Tony Bloom will be a willing, albeit reluctant seller, because they know that Evan Ferguson's got tremendous potential, but he's probably fourth in line now at Brighton when you take Danny Welbeck, João Pedro and Jorginho Rutter, their record signing, into account. But yeah, certainly one permanent offer from a rival Premier League club, and you wonder if there might be more permanent offers on the table in the very near future.
Yes, indeed. Keep the name in mind for Monday, Evan Ferguson at Brighton. Manchester City, of course, in the Champions League, got the result they needed against Club Brugge during the week, and now they survived to fight another day, and they fight against Real Madrid. That's a hell of a story, that. Celtic, in the meantime, take on Bayern Munich. City, do you think they'll do anything?
I think they need to, Jim.
Do you?
Yeah, and they've been big spenders in this window, the biggest spenders, which is very Manchester City, Pep Guardiola-like, but they gambled on two defenders who obviously have got future potential. Are they ready for the Premier League right at this moment in time? Maybe not. Marmoush, I think, can come in and make an impact between now and the end of the season. I thought he had a good debut in that win against Chelsea last weekend. They're still a little bit short in the fullback areas. We know that Andrea Cambiasso is a target, but I think that's more likely to happen in the summer now from Juventus than in this window. They are exploring the market for a defensive midfielder, because, of course, they lost Rodri, who you saw crowned Ballon d'Or winner a few weeks ago in that glitzy ceremony in Paris. And I do think that's disrupted their rhythm. It's affected the way they press, which means they're not the force they were. Douglas Luiz is one name in the frame. I think they want to take him on loan, whereas Juventus would want some kind of option or obligation built into that deal. But I think they need someone to come in and fill that Rodri void between now and the end of the season.
Many Wolves fans have been on throughout the week, Alex. Mathys Cunha, does he stay with us? Does he go? Is there a latest on that as the clock ticks?
I think he'll stay, but I think Wolves are finding it really difficult to do business in this window. Obviously, Vitor Pereira came in, replaced Gary O'Neill. They had that initial upturn in fortunes, but recent results aren't great. They're going to be very much part of the relegation battle between now and the end of the season. They want three players, I'm told, Wolves. They want a centre-back, they want a central midfielder, a defensive midfielder, number 6, and they want a striker as well. I'm told the striker, ideally, would be homegrown to help with that quota. I think Cameron Archer at Southampton may be a target, but Southampton reluctant to let him go. We know they had a bid for Kevin Danso, couldn't agree a fee. Looks like he's going to go elsewhere now. The defender who's playing over in France. There's been a couple of midfielders they've tried and failed to get. So at the moment, it's quite a frustrating window for Wolves fans, but I do expect Cunha to stay.
Alex and I will be on from 10 o'clock, 10 in the evening on Monday night, right through the deadline and beyond. You won't miss a trick. We're live in talkSPORT and we'll be across all the big deals. Do you expect a biggie? There's something rumbling out there, Alex, that I think is going to surprise us all.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure which club yet. That will materialise over the weekend and certainly on Monday. But I reckon, and we always say expect the unexpected, there will be a moment like that.
I have the same hunch, Jim. I've got to say, there's a few clubs who've kept their powder dry so far in this window, the likes of Nottingham Forest, who I keep talking about, and I'm sure that Marinakis is working on something. Liverpool have been quiet. I'm not expecting any business there, but never say never, because, of course, they're in a brilliant position in both the Premier League and the Champions League. Arsenal, could they get Mathys Tel? If not, could there be another striking option for them? Chelsea, as I've mentioned already, always seem to do business right at the end of the window. And Aston Villa, they've let John Duran go. He's been a key player, scored some big goals for them this season. They need a replacement. Two names we know they're looking at. João Felix at Chelsea. I think that could well happen. I think we know that Unai Emery has a long-standing admiration for him, and João Felix not particularly happy with the lack of game time at Stamford Bridge, so that is one very much on our radar. And Marco Asensio as well is another player that Villa are looking at. So I think Villa will get someone in to fill that big gap that John Duran leaves in the squad.
Well, Alex, I have to say you've played a blinder throughout the month of January. He does every day of every month here at talkSPORT, but we'll be hanging on your every word come Monday. We've been thinking about, again, transfers from the past over recent years. Obviously, I've been around the scene a lot longer than Alex because I'm considerably older than Alex. But I'll go back a fair distance to highlight the one that springs to mind for me, Alex. What about yourself? Have you got one in mind today?
Yeah, obviously my beat used to be the South Coast. I've got to say I had some brilliant deadline days with Harry Redknapp trying to work out what he was doing at Portsmouth and to a lesser extent Southampton. One that sticks in the memory is a striker, Ben Jarney, who you remember didn't score a lot of goals early in his Pompey career, and actually had a song, Benjani, comes from Zimbabwe, he's going to score one day. And then he did score some important goals to help them avoid certain relegation. He went to Manchester City from Portsmouth, ended up coming back a few years later. And the story that Harry Redknapp told at the time was that he was so reluctant to join City, who weren't the powerhouse then that they are now, that he fell asleep deliberately at the airport so that he'd miss his flight and therefore the window would close. Now, Benjani has corrected that and said that in true Harry style, it's been a little bit over-egged, shall we say. Yeah. But he did admit, listen, I wasn't particularly kicking and screaming to join Manchester City. And that is also what happens on deadline day. You might get a club who want to do something. They have an idea as to where they want to sell you or loan you, but maybe the players don't always want to do that, and they'll take extreme steps to get out of it.
Benjani, wonder where he is now, Alex. Wonder where he is now. We'll check that one out. Mr. Crook, what age were you in 1989? Can you give me a rough idea?
In January 1989, I'd have been 6.
1980, it was just 6. So I was plying my trade in Glasgow, working at Scottish television, and Graham Souness was managing Rangers, and all the talk was that Maurice Johnston, one-time Celtic player, was going to return to Celtic and go back to the club where he did so well previously and rejoin Celtic under Billy McNeill. And it seemed that, having been paraded by Celtic in the east end of Glasgow, this was indeed going to happen. Mo Johnston, back at Celtic where it all began, having gone to France to play for Nantes, looked very, very good, but was coming back to Celtic Park. And then what do you know? Souness and Rangers, oh my God, it couldn't be true, could it? Yes, it was true. They made their move, and Maurice Johnston became the first high-profile Roman Catholic player to play for Rangers. One-time Celtic, said no to going back to Celtic, having, it seemed, been on the brink of going back to Celtic, and joined the Souness revolution at Rangers. What a story it proved to be. It's still one in my mind, Alex. You had to live in Glasgow. You had to live in the west of Scotland to fully experience the ramifications of it. Yeah. But Maurice John Giblin Johnson will never be forgotten for that. I thought it was one heck of a brave decision by Mo Johnston. It was a courageous decision by Souness as well. And it changed the shape of Scottish football for many years to come. It truly was one heck of a story. Mo Johnston, wonder where he is now. Some boy he was. Now, it all leads to Monday, doesn't it? And Alex and I are on duty. This fellow, of course, is working all weekend. I'll be working on and off over the weekend. And then we're back Monday. I'll be on during the morning with Simon Jordan. Alex will be joining us, no doubt, then between 10 and 1. And then the big one itself, Monday, February the 3rd. This coming Monday, you do not want to miss it. We're not going to any power station to bring you the news of the latest deals that are going down. We'll be in the hot spot, the 17th floor of the news building in our super studio up there. Alex and I will be joined by Peterborough United owner Darragh McAntony, who, as I said earlier, is not backward and coming forward, is he, Alex?
He's going to be great. I mean, you know, sometimes on deadline day you need a little bit of an energy boost, and Darragh does that himself, doesn't he?
He does indeed. He'll be joining us, and of course, by then we may know the answers to some of the questions that we're still asking at this time. Will Marcus Rashford get his move? Are Spurs going to sign someone? Will that someone be Mathys Tel? Will Arsenal get a striker at last? All those questions and more. This man, Mr. Alex Crook, and myself will be on air, on duty for you, live on talkSPORT from 10 on Monday. You will not miss a trick. Alex, I cannot tell you how much I've enjoyed doing these podcasts with you. Today has been no exception. We'll be back Monday from 10. Before that, I'll be on 10 in the morning with Simon Jordan, and Alex will feature in there as well. Deadline day, don't miss it. Expect the unexpected. And then the big one itself, 10 through midnight with myself and Alex and Darragh McAntony. Take a deep breath. We will be ready.